Hello and welcome to the Google Analytics Migration Series. We're live on YouTube. And I'm Matt Landers, and I'm excited to start this series with you today. We're going to be doing this all week, so definitely tune in every day. And the goal of this series is to get you set up on Google Analytics 4. You're probably on the previous version of Google Analytics called Universal Analytics. And now we're going to help you go through the basics of migrating from UA to GA4. So the way this is going to work is that each day we're going to display a video tutorial of a concept. So today we're going to actually get you to create your Google Analytics 4 property, which we'll be able to do from Universal Analytics. So we're going to watch a tutorial video together, and then after that we'll do a live Q&A where I'll be back with you live. Now, if you have any questions, be sure to visit the form in which there's a link to that form in the description of this video, and those will come through and we'll get those and answer them at the end of the demo. Now, if we don't get to your question today, we'll definitely be queuing those up for other days and try to get them answered throughout the week. If not, you can join our Discord server where you can continue to get answers to your questions there too. You should be able to find a link to that on the page for this migration series or in the description of this video. All right, with that, let's dive into the demo, and then I'll be back with you live right after. Hello and welcome. I'm Matt Landers, and today we're kicking off a week-long series all about migrating from Universal Analytics, or UA, to Google Analytics 4, or GA4. This series is for those of you who have been using the previous version of Google Analytics for your website, but haven't yet started or finished setting up your Google Analytics 4 property. Each day we'll cover a different setup step. We'll walk through how to migrate your original UA property to your new GA4 property. And at the end of each video, we'll be live to answer your questions about that day's migration topic. So here's what to expect. Today, we'll recap what's happening in Google Analytics and how to access your new property. Tomorrow, we'll cover all things related to tagging and data collection. And then on day 3, we'll migrate your goals from UA to conversion events in GA4 to measure your most important user interactions. And on day 4, we'll talk all about configuring audiences. And finally, we'll wrap up on day 5 with other settings like ads linking and user roles. Follow along, and by the end of the week, you'll be able to check off the core features in Setup Assistant and use GA4 for your website measurement going forward. And with that, let's dive in. Google Analytics 4 is the latest version of the Google Analytics platform, but it's much more than a UI redesign. It's a new platform built from the ground up, and some of the benefits of GA4 include a flexible event-based data model, new reports, advanced intelligence features, predictive audiences, and privacy-focused measurement, all to help you measure your web and app performance for the future. GA4 has been around since October 2020. In the previous version, Universal Analytics will stop processing new data starting July 1st, 2023. To keep using Google Analytics, you need to set up your GA4 property as soon as possible. This series will show you how simple it is to create your new property and to migrate your settings from the old one to the new one using Setup Assistant's import tools. One more thing to know. If you haven't migrated your UA property yet, you may soon have or already have had a GA4 property created and set up for you. But the way it's automatically configured may not reflect how you'd choose to set it up yourself. So it's still best for you to check the results of the automatically created property or migrate yourself. As you'll see, it takes just a few minutes, and we'll do it together starting now. First, let's see where you're starting from. You can check what type of property you're using by logging in at analytics.google.com and going up to the top left where the account and property selector is. If you click on the name of your account and property, you'll see this box that lets you find and switch the property or account you're looking at. Here you can see I have a few properties. The one I currently have open is in this gray color, and I can see that it's a UA property because of the property ID. The number below the name starts with UA-, and any property that is of the previous version will start with UA in the ID number. And GA4 properties have an ID number without any letters. If you created it yourself, the name might be whatever you set it as. If there was an already automatically created property done for you, or you use Setup Assistant, then that property name will match the original property, but with -GA4 added on the end like this. If you don't have any GA4 properties, stay with me. We'll create one together in just a moment. If you do already have a GA4 property, you're halfway there. Just one quick step for you today, and that is to make sure it's connected to your original property, the UA property that it's based on. If you connect the two properties, you can use the migration tools to copy some of your settings over. It also means that you won't have another GA4 property automatically created for your existing UA property. If you don't want any settings imported to your GA4 property, you can opt out of this, and we'll cover that too. So whichever of these apply to you, let's everybody open your original UA property. In your original UA property, go to the bottom left gear icon to open the admin. If you only see the admin link, you're in a GA4 property. You should see a discover and attribution link as well if you're in a UA property. The admin has a few columns. Look for the property column in the middle and click GA4 Setup Assistant. On this page, you can see whether your UA property is connected to a GA4 property or not. If you see Go to Connected Property, great. You already have a UA property connected to a GA4 property. You should check this for each of your UA properties if you have more than one. If the UA property you're in is not connected yet, it'll prompt you to either create a new property or connect an existing one. So do what makes sense for you. If you already have a GA4 property you created separately, click Select an existing Google Analytics 4 property and choose the property that's meant to replace your UA property. Once you click Connect Properties, you did it. You can go to the connected property and use its Setup Assistant, which we'll see later this week, to compare your two properties and import a few configurations. If you don't connect or don't complete the Setup Assistant, it's possible that Google will automatically import some settings for you. If you don't want that to happen, you can opt out from your UA property. And this applies to everyone. If you don't want anything done automatically for you, here's how to opt out. All right, we're still on this UA Properties Setup Assistant page. Look at the bottom where it says automatically set up a basic Google Analytics 4 property. There's a toggle here. If it's toggled on, then Google may create a new GA4 property for you before the UA sunset. If you don't have one connected, or if you do have a connected property, it can copy settings from this UA property to your new property. If this toggle is disabled, then Analytics won't do that. It won't automatically migrate anything for you. Keep in mind that this toggle only applies to this particular UA property. If you have multiple UA properties for which you want to prevent any auto migration, you need to go into each property's Setup Assistant to switch this toggle off. More information on this opt-out toggle for auto-created properties and auto-copied settings is linked below. You can make the choice that's best for you and your business. So, those of you who have already had a GA4 property that's now connected to a UA property, you're set for today. Check out the link in the description for some information on data collection, which we'll focus on tagging tomorrow. Okay, now, if you don't have a GA4 property for your UA property, we'll create the property now from Setup Assistant. Okay, from your UA property, go to the admin by clicking the link in the bottom left. Once in the admin, click GA4 Setup Assistant, which is in the middle property column. This is a setup assistant that can help you get started quickly and easily. To use it, you need at least edit permissions on your account. From here, you should see the option to get started migrating to Google Analytics 4. When you click this button, you'll get a quick overview of what this setup wizard will do. It will create a new property for you and copy some basic settings over. If your website is already tagged with the global site tag gtag.js, then you'll have the option to use your existing tag for collection in your new property. If you see this option, we highly recommend making sure this box is checked. If you don't have this checkbox, you'll see tagging options in just a few minutes. Now, click Create and Continue. That was it. Step 1 complete. You created your new GA4 property. If you did have that Google Site Tag checkbox on the previous screen, you're all set. Stay tuned for the Q&A in just a few minutes. If you didn't see or check that box, then your screen probably looks like mine right now. And you'll notice that there's one more important step for today, which is to set up your Google tag, which is how you collect data in analytics. You might see a few options now depending on your UA tagging setup, or you might see one option and others grouped in a more options section. If your screen doesn't look exactly like mine, that's okay. Generally, there are 3 options. First, you might be able to use your Google tag that you already have. If you have the option, go ahead and do that. You can select the right tag and analytics will use the existing tag to measure website activity in this new GA4 property. Second, if you use a content management system or website builder, you may need to make some changes there. You can see if you can log in to your CMS from here, and we have some listed here, and if yours isn't, that's okay. Tomorrow we'll help you figure out tagging. Many of them accept your measurement ID, and more on this in the description below, but again, we'll cover tagging in more detail tomorrow. Last but not least, you can manually install a new tag. In other words, you or your developer can add a snippet of code to your website. Choose this option to copy and paste the tag's code onto your website. You'll need to make sure that it's on every page of your site, and you'll need to place it after the head element. If you're not sure which to choose right now, don't worry. Tomorrow I'll show you where you can find this information again, and we'll talk about all things tagging. So after you've made your selection or you click out of this, your back-end setup assistant is still in your original UA property. It should say that you've successfully created a property, and there's a button to go to your GA4 property. Let's click on that now. A new tab will open with your new property. You can go up to the upper left corner to see that the property name has -GA4 at the end. And if you click this, you can still see where your original property is and go back to it if you choose. Now, in your GA4 property, you'll start in the Setup Assistant, which is an equivalent page to the one we were just in. But now that we're in GA4, your Setup Assistant will be your home base for all things configuration. It provides a checklist of things to do here to get fully set up and also includes some tools to help you migrate your settings from one to the other. It shows you how your new property compares to your original so that you can choose to act or not. You may prefer a fresh start. So you can click the arrow and click Mark as Complete once you're satisfied with your GA4 settings for each topic. Take some time to check it out, click Learn More to read some instructions, or click the arrow at the end of the row to explore your options. Or you can stick with me over the next few days and we'll go through these items together one by one. And by day 5, you'll have marked all these basic settings as complete. For now, let's open it up to questions about migration. And if I don't get to your question today, I'll try to get to it in tomorrow's video. Otherwise, you can join the Google Analytics Discord server where we'll be answering questions from this week's videos. All right, let's get to your questions. All right, welcome back to the live Q&A. Hopefully that demo was informative. We have some questions that have been coming through that we're ready to answer. So let's go ahead and dive into our first question. All right, I don't want anything automatically migrated for me. So what should I do? Well, this probably came in before the demo because it was in the tutorial. But you can go into your Universal Analytics property into the GA4 Setup Assistant, and then you can go to the bottom and there's a toggle that will prevent Google from migrating anything to a new property. So we won't create a new property and we won't migrate any settings. Then also, if the property is already created, then you can toggle that same toggle in order to prevent any settings to be migrated as well. All right, thank you for that question. And let's get to our next question. Let's see. All right, how do you migrate previous data from UA? When I look in GA4, I don't see my old data. All right, so GA4 is a completely new platform. It's not just an upgraded version of GA3. And what happened was there's a discrepancy between the two data models that we have, and we're not able to migrate data directly from UA to GA4. But there are a few things that you can do to preserve your historical data. You can export it to CSV, or you could export it to BigQuery, which is what a lot of our customers are doing. You get that data in BigQuery, then you can pull in your GA4 data there as well, and you can query it there to see some of those historical trends. But there's no way to actually get the data from UA into GA4. Those comparisons will have to be done external of the product. All right, thank you for that question. That's a really good one. And be on the lookout for some more content around that my team is working on over the next few months. You'll have access to your old UA data for the next 6 months, I believe. I'll get that confirmed. All right, let's go to the next question. All right, I did the migration, but it looks like the data isn't exactly the same between my GA4 account and the UA property that it's connected to. I've completed all of the steps. Am I missing something? This is a really good question, and it kind of goes back to the same thing I just said, where the platforms are different and the way that they do the counting is actually different as well. So there's a few things that you definitely want to check out that aren't related to the counting, which would be to making sure that all of your pages are tagged. So make sure that the pages on your primary website are tagged. Any landing pages that you have on different platforms are tagged. You need to make sure your tagging is set up across all of your different pages and sites. And then make sure that your referral exclusions are the same as well between UA and GA4. And then there's we actually have a Help Center article on this too that we'll link in the description, but it'll show you how the counting is different between UA and GA4. For instance, conversion counting is different. You know, in UA we had goals, and those were counted once per session, whereas in GA4 they're counted for every single event. So if somebody logged onto your site and they bought something over the course of a session, and then they bought another thing during that same session, that would only count as one conversion, whereas in GA4 it'll be counted as 2 conversions. So there are some discrepancies like that that are, kind of on purpose and not something that you've done wrong. So make sure that you're checking out the differences in how the counting works and seeing if that is the reason for seeing those discrepancies. You definitely shouldn't see anything completely crazy and out of the ordinary, but there will be differences in the numbers in general. All right, thank you for that question. Let's dive into the next one. All right, let's see. All right, what's the best way to replicate UA's filter view in GA4? So this question came with a little bit more context, but basically in Universal Analytics, we had different views. In GA4, we don't have that same concept. So we are gonna link a Help Center article in the description that shows you a lot of this in detail in a table. So definitely check that out. But basically, there's no perfect one-to-one analogy of a view in Universal Analytics to something in GA4, but a lot of those features are replicated at the property level. Now there are some features in views that you won't necessarily find in GA4, and we're definitely looking for feedback on that as well if there's something missing that you see as an issue with your migration. Let me see if there's anything else on this. All right, yeah, so we have an entire Help Center article on this particular topic, and I would check out the description of the video, and we will have that linked there. All right, thank you for that question. That's a good one. I've definitely seen that a few times in our Discord server. But let's jump into the next question. Oh, it's on the screen. All right, so what can happen if we don't migrate until after July? So this is a really good one. And it's important that you understand this, that in July, on July 1st, we're gonna stop processing hits for Universal Analytics. That means that if you haven't migrated to GA4 and you're on a standard property, meaning a free version of Google Analytics 4, or Universal Analytics, then you're going to stop receiving hits for that property, meaning you're gonna have a gap in the data that you receive. And I don't think that that's what anybody wants in their analytics. You want to be able to continue to collect that information and have it processed so that you can analyze it and make good business decisions. And the only way to do that is to make sure that you're also tagging in Google Analytics 4. So there's no reason not to right now to do dual tagging, which is where you're still running you're still getting hits in your Universal Analytics property and also getting those hits in GA4. So there's nothing stopping you from doing that, to having both until the actual cutoff date. But if you haven't migrated after July 1st, then you're gonna just lose that data. And I don't think that's what anybody wants. So definitely make sure that you complete these migration steps before July 1st. All right, thank you for that question. That's a really good one. I think it's really important that everybody understands that. And that is actually all the questions we have for today. But you can continue to submit your questions, and we'll be getting to those in the live Q&A after each of the following days throughout this week. And if there's any follow-up answers that you want, be sure to join our Discord community and ask your questions there. Me and my team are there, and other people from the analytics team are there to answer your questions. All right, let's jump into what we're gonna do for the rest of the week. All right, so today we went over how to create your Google Analytics 4 property. And tomorrow, on Tuesday, we're going to set up our tagging and get our data collection running and flowing into Google Analytics. On Wednesday, we're going to dive into events and import our goals from Universal Analytics as conversion events in Google Analytics 4. And then on Thursday, we're going to migrate our audiences. And on Friday, we're going to wrap up with covering a few different topics and answer any final migration questions that you have in that live Q&A. All right, until tomorrow, hopefully this tutorial has been helpful for you and we've answered some of your questions. And until tomorrow, when I see you again live at the Q&A, happy measuring.